Hey, toy fans! Welcome back to the Spectre Creative Channel with me, Scott ToyGuru Neitlich. This is a continuing series about the different jobs in the toy industry. And this job in particular is kind of important to me because it's the first job I had, a copywriter in the toy industry. So what is a copywriter in the toy industry, and how do they play a part in all of our action figure collecting? Well, they're not the person who copyrights something. Well, they actually kind of do play a part in that, but that's not really what they do. It's a misconception. A copywriter is a job. It's the person who physically writes. It's a writer, essentially. And copy is what is the term for what they write. They produce copy. Whether it's descriptions or names or advertising slogans, that is called copy. And copy gets turned into either print ads or, in the case of the toy industry, packaging, instructions, anywhere you see words. Words are copy. And before I entered the toy industry, I was a copywriter at ad agencies. I wrote ad copy. For example, this, or this one here. Well, this is just a giant picture of a pillow, but as it scans down, you'll see the copy I wrote. It's for a pillow company called Between the Sheets, but that's not important right now. Well, it is important, but it's just an example. So see, there you go. There's all the copy. We're an awesome shopping experience, etc., etc., etc. And I wrote that line, Dreamweavers, which is their positioning line. So copy could be everything from a headline to a positioning line to description copy. And because of my experience in the medical copy industry, I easily got a job in the toy industry at Mattel because all of the legalese of understanding medical copy, having to have the warnings, having to have the all the government required odds and ends, transfers very well over into how toys work, because toys have all of that fine print as well, where you have to have the warnings and the no assembly and all of that stuff. Mattel, when I interviewed with them, saw that as a very transferable skill set, understanding legalese in medical and legalese in toy. So flipping this particular toy onto the back, you can see all the different things that need copy, all of those call outs, all of those inset shots, making sure to call out all the different features. And this is why copywriters in the toy industry kind of actually become sort of the ringmasters of getting a toy to market. Yes, marketing does do the lead strategy, but it's the copywriter who has to work with the designer and the packaging engineers to make sure all of the different features are called out on package in an appropriate way. So as an example, and I'm going to run through a couple examples that I did at Mattel when I was a copywriter there in Hot Wheels before I transferred over to the marketing group, where notably I ran Matty Collector and Masters of the Universe Classics, DC Universe Classics, that type of thing. So the first example I want to show to illustrate what a copywriter does is this line, which was called Turbo Glow, which were light up cars. Now, this logo, which was created by Ryan Gleason, who was the graphic artist on the brand, he was my partner, if you will, the line didn't have a name at first. It was just light up cars. So we had to come up with the name Turbo Glow, and he had to come up with the logo, as well as the name for all of the individual cars and the individual sets. So this set is called Street Duel, and it had, different call-outs like 2 precision control, spinning targets and, et cetera, et cetera. All those bullet points and all of those call-outs, all of the inset shots that have captions, and these have to be done for 1L, meaning English, 4L packaging, meaning Spanish, English, Portuguese, and French, and sometimes even 9L. So sometimes you're going to have longer copy, sometimes you're going to have shorter copy. The 1L English might have a longer copy, and then you might write a shorter version that's going to get translated into 4L or 9L packaging for international release. A lot of times 4L has now become standard. Like if you look at a Marvel Legends or a Black Series figure, you'll see they're just standard in 4L now. But all of the copy on the back of this package, from how to use the set to all of these call-outs showing the different features, to here at the bottom what are called inset shots, which are showing different sort of views of the toy, and on the captions, as well as cross-sells. Anywhere where you see a word, that's what the copywriter produces. And this is the same with licensed product and action figures. Granted, they may have less copy than something like a Hot Wheels set, which needs to call out how all the features work. With an adult collector figure, like this Ghostbuster character, as an example, the only thing the copywriter may be coming up with is the name of the character and their description. So in this case, the Vigo was described as Scourge of Carpathia, Sorrow of Moldavia. Or in the case of Granomir here, he has a whole bio on the back of his package that has to be produced by a copywriter. Or in the case of this, the guy in marketing, because he used to be a copywriter. But the point is, this stuff doesn't just come out of a black hole. It has to be written. And understanding not just bios, but call-outs and how all of this, you have to be able to describe all of the features of a product, as well as figure out where, what's called the real estate of the product's packaging, you're going to put these things. Like if you have a burst calling out that another figure is included, like in the case of this Orko figure, it calls out that Prince Adam is also included. So that burst has to be accounted for, and how is it going to work visually on the package? So for a deeper dive, let's look at a toy line called Modifighters. This was an action figure line from Hot Wheels that I worked on right before I transferred into the marketing group to start working on Matty Collector. So Modifighters was a homegrown brand at Mattel. It was kind of, Mattel's version of Transformers, if you will. So it all started with something like this, what's called a B sheet that shows all the different characters that are being designed. And I did a whole video just about the Modifighters, which you can see here, but I just want to talk about the copywriting aspects, and I'm going to use this as an example. So as a copywriter, you'll probably be provided with something like a B sheet, or in this case, what's called a foam model, which is like a looks-like model, so you can see kind of what the toy is going to look like. Now this is a picture of Raquel Welch. It has nothing to do with copywriting at all. It just happens to be there. All right, so with Modifighters, the first thing that's going to happen, because it's a homegrown line, is it's got to come up with a theme and a name. Modifighters was the name of the brand, but it started, I believe, as just called like Urban Car Robots or something generic like that. That was never meant to be the name. It was always meant to be the description, and it needed a name. So as the copywriter, you start by making lists of possible names. It might just start in your notebook while you're in other meetings, just writing down, names on the back of a piece of paper, trying to come up with what you could call this toy line that might work not just from a legal standpoint, but from a commercial standpoint. And this can mean a lot of names, and I mean a lot of names. I remember for Modifighters in particular, it went through lists after lists after lists after lists of possible names for the brand. Now, this name has to be approved by legal. So this is where the copywriter actually does copywriting, if you will. They send it into legal, who reviews it to make sure that legally a company can own that name and call the toy that. So as an example, Mattel in the 80s produced a character toy called Ninjor, which was an evil ninja warrior in the Masters of the Universe line. When it came to doing that figure again in the 2000s, well, it turned out that another toy company, since Ninjor, had taken out the copyright for that name. Names expire if they're not used after a certain amount of time, and other toy companies can pick them up. So when you're doing a brand new toy line like Modifighters here, and you're coming up with a name for that brand new line, a lot of times that name is then going to be tested in focus groups or even around the building with fellow employees. So here you can see kind of like the top 5 names that marketing liked, and they were all tested with Modifighters being the winning name and the name that became the line. Then, once the line is named, then you've got to name all the individual characters or the individual cars or the individual dolls. They all need names too, and that has to go through the same process of legal review and sometimes being reviewed in focus groups, being reviewed by management, etc., etc. Probably the bigger the company, the more people are reviewing. And I've worked for big companies and small companies. Once all the names are approved, then you're going to go to something like a copy template. So this is one that I created personally on my own. This is not from Mattel, but essentially it has all the different areas that have to be filled in order to translate that into copy on a package. Everything from the names, bursts, legal boxes, age grade, chip copy, which means like a burst that's actually like a piece of cardboard inside, like in 3D, if you will. And you have to do this for all the sides, left side, right side, bottom. Things like the legal marks, the toy number, the assortment number, this is all that legalese I spoke at the beginning that in the medical industry I had done very well for 4 years and how I got my job in the toy industry. So you can see here, here's an example of a template filled out where you have things like the choking hazard and the back panel and the logos and where the story copy goes, etc., etc. And this goes through revisions just like names do. You're going to start with one, you're going to edit. You may come up like it says tagline options. You're going to come up with multiple taglines. All those toys you see, every Barbie, every Hot Wheels, every Hasbro Marvel, well, maybe not a Marvel Legends figure, but Play School is a good. Every toy you see, when you see that name, it probably went through multiple names to get to the package. It's not just like one name and they go with it. So here you can see the layout of what will be the packaging. Again, this would have been created by Ryan Gleason, who did that logo for Turbo Glow that you saw earlier. So he's going to do a layout to show where all of the copy points are going to be. And then when the copy doc is approved and legally approved, then it gets turned into the packaging and all of the copy is put on the package and essentially locked in place, and the graphic artist goes to work creating the actual package. So that's basically how a package becomes a package. And you can see why the copywriter is really that center gear in the toy production process, because you need to be talking to the designer and the engineer and legal and the graphic artist and find all these ways to make sure all the information winds up on package the way it needs to be. And, if you're lucky, when you work on enough toys, maybe you can even sneak in a name of a, character you created when you were a kid and name a toy after that, having no idea that one day you may actually get to make an action figure of that character. But hey, every fringe benefit helps, right? I hope this video answered your questions about what a toy copywriter does and how he or she contributes to the overall process. If you liked the video, give it a like, give it a subscription. I would appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me your comments below if anything I missed or you want clarification on, and I'll see you guys in the toy aisles.